Good morning. I'm not ready this morning. Just so you know. I don't even want to know what I just probably showed you. Let's see. You know why? You know why you're single and alone? Because you're a fucking idiot. That's why. That's why. God, my nails are wrecked. I need a manicure. Stat. Good morning. Is it a good morning? I don't know. That's a little discombobulated. I don't even know. Oh, God. Jesus Christ. What the hell's going on here? Jesus, stop. Stop it. I'm just going to let you know. It's been one of those mornings. I haven't. Hi, good morning. Good to see you. I'm having like a really misplaced morning. Wait, I have to pick up my coffee. Ow. 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 How are you, Oomph? Are you good? It's Wednesday. Is today still is Wednesday? Are Wednesdays good days? Are Wednesdays the good days? That seems like a terrible idea. That seems like a terrible idea to set something on there, but that's okay. Oh, I know why. Sorry, hold on. I'm sitting on my lumbar pillow. Hump day could be worse. Oh, okay. Well, all right. Okay. Never mind. Never mind. Hi, Kathy. Hump day. That's right. Well, how about those super seedy indictments? I'm pretty excited about those. Are you guys excited about those? I'm pretty... Well, I mean, I actually am not that excited about it. Because I feel like, yet again, we're going to end up, like, with some kind of disappointment. I don't know. Yeah, I guess. Every day could be worse, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, really. I mean, realistically. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, really though, at least we've got something. Hi, butterflies. How are you? Moderately pleased about the super CD. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Kathy. That's a great way to put it. Moderately pleased. I have to, the thing about this situation is, cheerio. The thing about this situation is that I keep treating it like it's a movie, with an arc. And I think that's really dumb. I think I need to stop doing that. I think I need to just, as we do, just let the days come. Although, I mean, I think I set myself up for that because, you get online every morning. Oh, okay. So butterflies, we watched the stunt at Arlington yesterday and questioned Monday, and questioned why he was allowed to do that. Because I'm pretty sure none of that is allowed. And I get that this morning they're saying, oh, they shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have done that. And there was some physical altercation. I don't know. I'm going to pull it up. But I'm like, when are we going to actually tell the Trump campaign or whoever, You can't do this. You cannot do this. You're prohibited from doing this, and you're done. That's it. That's what I think. That's what I think. Hi, Neil. How are you? Good morning. None of that is allowed. None of that. By anyone. By anyone. Horrid, horrid stunt. Oh. It's pretty dumb. Pretty dumb. Anyway, but yeah, so hold on, actually, because I want to see if I can pull that. All good? Good, Neil. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Glad Pepperidge Farm remembers. Jeez, this is the only problem. I don't have enough desk. I do. I'm just kidding. I do. I'm just kidding. Never mind. Hold on. Why, Luigi? Okay, this really is kind of annoying, though. I need to figure out where to put this computer so that I can see the fucking screen. Okay. Sorry. Good morning. Oh, no, don't freeze. No. Why does this do this every morning? Why does it freeze? Fucking. I don't know what is causing the freezing every morning. I really don't. Hold on. It was frozen. So I reloaded the page. Oh. Why does it keep freezing though? It does this every morning now. I wonder why. Reloaded and it's fine. Damn, I really hate that though. What a terrible experience. Oh yeah, I'm gonna pull up. Oh wait, did I freeze? No. What happened here? Wow, this is weird. Oh, here we go. Okay. Wonky. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Sad to see my old friend Jerry the Red Snapper. Neil, did you like my fish videos? Do you like the little fish videos? I like my fish videos. Did you guys see my fish videos? Hold on. God, I'm really mad about that freezing though. I need I don't have much in my life, believe it or not. Believe it or not. Wait a minute.
Assuming that no one was working on Sunday, January 22nd.
Oh, no, that's a different case. Okay, sorry. I thought it was I thought it was our guys. Okay. Where's actually. Okay, hold on, because we've got for those of you who haven't seen it, I'll show you my fish videos. Yeah. Yeah. Where's my campfire? Okay. Mine's fine now. Yeah, it's so weird though. I'm so sorry. God, it's annoying as fuck. And it doesn't show me anything on this end that it's dropping or freezing. That's the problem. It doesn't really help. I'll keep an eye on it though. I mean, okay. All right. So that's my channel, as you may or may not know. And anyway, we've got some more fish trilogies from the market yesterday. So here's the first one. Wait, let's make sure it's turned up, because it's not that loud. I should put some music behind it, but I'm not very good at that.
Hi everybody. I don't know if you
Oh, wait a
remember
minute.
us, but I'm Lynn and I'm Lamb, and we are Red Snappers here to say hello. Hi everybody. I don't know if you remember us, but I'm Lynn and I'm Lamb, and we are Red Snappers here to say hello with our big eyes. And that's Jerry. Yeah. Anyway. Hi everybody. I don't know if you remember. I don't understand what I'm doing in this place. What am I doing in this place? And I'm an asshole.
I cracked myself up.
We're Canadian, eh? Oh, Canadian poet, eh? How you guys doing, eh? Yeah. Oh, put your hat on. Put your tooth on. We are the free.
Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. Let's see. What else? Let's see if I have. Oh, I have shown you guys those ones. Oh, I still love this.
Our alliances and engaged with our brave troops overseas. As Commander-in-Chief, I
Neil,
will
you could be the
ensure
Canadian leg.
America
Look at this cat
always
feet.
has the
I'm
strongest,
dying.
most
I
lethal
love this
fighting
cat.
force in the world, and I will fulfill our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families, and I will always honor and never disparage their service and their sacrifice.
I love that so much. I swear to God, I love that. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's just, it doesn't take much for me. That's true. Do, 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 do. I love that. Bobo's so funny. Oh my God, my computer is definitely fucking up. I think it's bandwidth. Fuck. I hate you. I hate you, sir. I hate you. Oh God, fucking fuck. Sorry. Hold on. Give me my goddamn. There it is. Bitch. Oh my God. Okay, I don't know what's happening with my streaming platform, but I can't seem to like. Fuck. Well, good morning. Mercury retrograde. Fuck. The flag emojis. The fish videos were fun. They had Canadian content. They did. Because we're an international show here. We're an international entertainment media empire. We have offices in East Hollywood and nowhere else, actually. Oh, I can't even move this screen. Oh my God. Hold on. Good morning. Good morning, Lolo. Why don't you go fuck yourself? Okay, well, oh, Jesus Christ. You know the thing where do you know, okay, you know this feeling. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop touching it. Good morning, Tommy. Oh my gosh. It's Tommy Temper, famous Canadian restreamer. How are things in, where are you, Tommy? What part of Canada are you in? I can't remember now. What part of Canada? Everyone. Is Is that what it is? Well, I mean, I have technical difficulties all the time. But are you saying there are some problems with the... why can't I move this? I just want to move my little thing. It's not going to do it. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to fight it. Oh, bitch. It's like a delay. You know, my mouse moves on a delay, and that's what's pissing me off. Beep, beep, beep. Edmonton, Alberta, it's still pretty early. Looks like a windy day today. No, windy day. Cloudy. Oh, nice. I think it's going to be nice here. It's actually a little cooler in Los Angeles this morning than it has been. But, God, that's annoying. But yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Max is right. Isn't that always the case, though? Isn't Mercury always in retrograde? Isn't that always like something that's going to happen? I mean, really. I want to bring up the super Seedy indictment. So excited. I run about 6 pieces of software that all have to integrate. Lots of times they glitch. So what do you use? Because I use OBS, and then I have Streamlabs. Not StreamYard, but Streamlabs on top of my OBS. So that's what I use. I wasn't sure what you used. That's right. Neil's from Montréal, et Québécois. Où est Québécois? Is it going to be dangerously hot today? I don't know if it's going to be. I think it's actually cooled down just a touch here. Because it wasn't like super ridiculously, it wasn't ridiculously hot this morning. Neil. Good. Tamisha. Max. Yeah. All right. So I need to bring up the super CD. And it's in the My Sharona. Okay. La 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 la. Okay, where's my... I'll try and do my other one. When in doubt, figure it out. Wow, it just does not... I think it is fucking broken. Screen cap gaming. Oh. Wow, it's just not really... It's not really working today. Hi, we're not working. Hi there. Hi. You use OBS StreamYard, Voice Mod Stream as well, Spotify Stream Deck, Loop Deck, and oh, well, see, that's a lot more than I have going on. Yeah, that's a lot more than I have going on. Well, okay, this thing is not gonna move. It's gonna cover my face, and it's gonna cover all of our chat, and I don't want that to happen. Wow, it's being really glitchy. Got a lot of glitchies this morning. Oh, I see. Everything's on like a little bit of a delay. Okay, I get it. I can work with that. This is what we're going to read this morning, but first we're going to talk, and I'm going to Max is always right, by the way. Maybe restart my computer. Oh, Tommy, I worked at the Journal for a couple of years. There we go. I know. I might have to restart, but I think I'll be okay. I mean, I think we'll make it. Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah, Tommy, I would say restream me when you because Tommy restreams a lot of people, But I think that your chat would hate me. I mean, your chat already does hate me. So I don't think I would restream me because they'd probably just get really mad. Right on. I used to do a bit of service work at the old journal. Oh, wow. According to Zane. Shit. Well, she's right. Wait. Mercury retro ended yesterday, but there could be a hangover effect. Well, that's convenient. Well, how convenient to have a hangover effect with a Mercury in retrograde. That makes a lot of sense. I could see that. It's supposed to be 102 degrees. Oh, that's fucked up. Oh, it's the first day of school and it's that. Oh, man, that's so bad. I hate that. That sucks. Man. So I this morning we're going to read the Super Seedy Indictment, which is really the first indictment, but it's taken all the parts about Jeffrey Clark out. But, you know, it kind of goes to show just when you think, you know, Jack Smith is like defeated and kind of like, well, all right, maybe I won't bring any cases. He's like, oh no, I've been working on a carve out. But, yeah. Yeah. Oh, hold on. My eye's watering. Hold on. I'm crying. Hold on. You guys are making me cry. You're always making me cry. Oh. Wonder if that's going to stay. Anyway. No. And then when I was 12, yes, it was a completely new grand jury. A completely new grand jury. Yeah. So sorry, everybody. Sorry, MAGA. Well, and so I was listening to my favorite women this morning, Chicks on the Right. They're not my favorite. I hate them, but I was listening to them. And they were like, Jack Smith has so much TDS that he can't possibly give up. So here they go again. Well, okay, ladies, this is a set of charges that have been made. They are absolutely valid charges. And if they weren't, guess what? A real court or a grand jury would have said there were no charges. Okay? So I get that you think that this is some kind of, you know, witch hunt, derangement syndrome. First of all, I think the MAGA are the one with the derangement syndrome because they can't let go of that guy. Like, no matter what he does to them, they cannot let go. So if anyone has derangement syndrome, I think it's the people who support Trump. Anyway, the point is that I understand the big complaint this morning in MAGA land is, oh, these are just made up and dee-da-da-da-bird. Well, no, I'm sorry. They're not made up. And there's actual, like, evidence behind them and witnesses. Oh, and by the way, if nothing is real, why have so many people, namely lawyers, flipped? Because when your lawyers flip, that's bad. That's bad. And you want to know who flipped in this case? Evan Corcoran. Or actually, I think he flipped in the documents case. Or maybe this one. I don't know. But here's the thing. Other lawyers have flipped. Other members of his administration, including, I think his Mark Meadows is going to cooperate, right? So I guess what I'm saying is you can cry all you want about the fact that you think this is not, this is not going anywhere. But the fact of the matter is, it's already gone somewhere. The train left the station, and it's a real train with real passengers. and real evidence. So sorry. I know, Jim. I know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that mess at Arlington. Yep. Well, interestingly enough, we watched that mess at Arlington. And I understand that there was like an altercation. Is that true? Wait, let me see. Oops. Oh, I guess I don't have New York Times pulled up anymore. But my understanding is there was an altercation actually with the people at Arlington. Like, what the fuck? Who's fighting with the people at Arlington? Who? I'm telling you right now. The people who are supporting MAGA are on absolutely the wrong side of history, and I'm shocked that thinking adults can actually do any kind of reading about what this case is and then decide, oh well, he's innocent and it's just a witch hunt. No. No, this is due process. And I know it's hard to believe that a sitting president would try to obstruct justice and do things like that. I know it's hard to believe that. I don't want to believe it either. But the fact of the matter is, he did. And he had lots of people trying to help him do it, which is what his downfall was, because they're not going to go to jail for him. Sorry. And guess what? It's not just him. In fact, he's not the mastermind of anything. This is much more about Roger Stone and Steve Bannon and, all the rest of them. Like, this is about all of them. This is about Mike Flynn. This is about the people who want to see an authoritarian regime of their choosing in place. That's what this is about. That's why Peter Thiel invested in J.D. Vance. That's why Peter Thiel invested in Elmo. For those reasons. Your guess is it was Corey Lewandowski? I think it was Chris LaSavita, actually. It could have been Corey, though. There are 4 to 5 other grand juries out there deciding whether to indict. Really, Jim? Huh. I wonder where they are. I wonder where they are. So, actually, too, hold on, let me. See, and Tommy, if you're still listening, I don't know if you're still here. I would love to have like a real debate with someone about like why I feel the way I feel or whatever you disagree with. But I don't want to have like, it has to be a genuine conversation, not just like a stupid, base argument. So, I mean, you're always like getting down on Biden supporters or whatever. I don't know whatever you call them, leftists. I'm not sure. But I can't have conversations with people that don't have like a genuine kind of approach to the argument. Which is hard to do when you're standing up for the guy who is still holding on to documents. It's a tough sell. Thugs. I know. Like, I don't really, I don't know. I mean, I like talking to people that don't agree with me, but I can't have like the, I just can't do that. Okay. I'm going to read this document. Oh, wait. First, I wanted to do something else. Hold on. 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 They are too far gone. No, and I don't want to convince anyone. No. No, it's not. I'm not convincing anyone. Believe me. They don't give a shit what I say. Let me just see if there's anything going on. But I would definitely I'm not averse to having the conversation, but I've never found a setting where it would be a productive conversation other than just, yelling and stuff like that, which, I can do that too, but Tom Girardi found guilty of embezzling millions from clients. Oh, Tom Girardi's a big lawyer. He was the inspiration for LA Law, that show in the old days. Well, he is really going to he's going to go to jail forever. Like, he's going to die soon because he's very old and he's sick, but they're too far gone. They're going down with the ship. Oh, I'm sure that dude throws out the libtard slur too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then runs away. Yeah, it's true. Libtard. That's a terrible thing. You're not supposed to say the R word, and you don't put tard on things and think you're getting away with something. That's actually just as bad. Jesus Christ. Get a grip. Grow up. Okay, let's see. MAGA brings no. Do 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 do. Bow. Okay, wait. Let me go to. Oh, I know. I was gonna go to my playlist. Real Housewives of the Insurrection. La 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 la. I started a playlist on Tom Barrack too because I want to do something about Tom Barrack. Look at that. I wanted to play a couple clips. Oh, like this. This is a short one. What the hell? I don't know what that is. I would like that to be remove. Thank you. Okay.
Hey everyone, Harry here to talk.
Hold on, Harry Littman. Hold on, Harry. I want to hear from Harry first about. Oh, you. Okay. I want to hear from Harry. Sorry, Harry. About this super seedy indictment. So we're going to hear a little bit from him.
About the report that Jack Smith is not going to seek to do a mini hearing in the January 6th case. Let me set this up a little bit more. Recall that the Supreme Court had this its expansive immunity decision and seemed to really leave. Well, first it took many months. And then it left not a lot of room, or it's unclear, and Judge Chutkan is going to have to decide, as will Jack Smith, how to proceed with the court's pretty cryptic and pretty expansive guidance. Now, in the wake of that decision, there were people, a lot of people, credible, well-respected folks who said, hey, even if the court has taken up too much time now for there to be a trial, maybe there could be an evidentiary hearing, and Judge Chutkan could consider in determining what is consistent with the Supreme Court decision. Evidence, like, for example, most notably, Mike Pence. Could Mike Pence come to the stand and say, here's what happened, and Chutkan would be looking and assessing that evidence in making the decision whether or not to permit that evidence. And in that way, there would be a kind of a glass half full result, according to these folks, because there would still be evidence presented in advance of the election of some of Trump's more notorious behavior. So I was always a naysayer here, and I thought for a couple reasons. First, I didn't think the courts would countenance it. The Supreme Court opinion is really expansive, but as one of its most expansive points is it says you can't even use evidence of conduct that could be immune under federal law, and implied strongly that that would include, for example, discussions between Trump and Pence as president and vice president. They offered a potential out for Pence acting as in his capacity as head of the president of the Senate, but that's not really what it was about when Trump was whipsawing him and telling him he had to do these things, etc. So it always seemed likely to me that there was a chicken egg problem, that if Jack Smith came forward and tried to offer this evidence, that Trump would jump up and down and say, you can't do that because it's evidence of immunized conduct that can't be used, and that whatever Chutkan did, there would be an immediate appeal because it's a question of immunity, which is sort of the right not to be tried in the first place or heard in the first place. And I thought there wasn't going to be room for a mini trial. In addition, I thought it was unlikely that the DOJ would want to do it. They're not focused on getting out the information before the election. They're focused on doing right by the prosecution. And it's anomalous, to say the least, for a prosecutor to play his hand openly in a way that gives the defense a real preview of what the charges would be. So the current report is indeed Jack Smith doesn't, this is supposedly by anonymous sources, but that Jack Smith has decided not to seek a mini trial or an evidentiary hearing. Now, to the extent it suggests that he was really thinking about it and made a decision, I think it's overstated. As I say, I don't think it was ever really in the cards. And even had he wanted to pursue it, I don't think it would ever have actually come to fruition. I think whatever Judge Chutkan said, let's say Judge Chutkan said, well, we can consider what Pence said to Trump, there would be an immediate appeal, and from there, potential appeal to the Supreme Court, and the court could both rule for Trump, but also just it would take up a fair bit of time. So I just never saw it as a tenable possibility. And now, so the report is they're not going to.
So that was Harry when he talked about that. But then there's another one. Hold on. That, where is it? Is this the one? No. Is that the one I just played? I thought there was another one about... Damn it. Okay. Oh, I know. Wait, hold on. I know. I know what to do. Yeah. I know what to do. It's on my other list. Watch later. Oh, maybe not. Oh, shit. Okay. Oh, maybe that was just the Harry Littman one. Okay. Sorry about that. Never mind. Back it up. That's one thing I wanted. But now I want to tell you about this other thing. Now I'm going to read the document. Okay. Oops. We got to move the cat. Kitty Cam. You are a kitty cam. There we go. Okay. Here we go. Boy, I hope I'm not frozen again. I think I'm not. I think I can see myself. Okay. All right. Here we go. We're gonna read the document. Oh, man, I did not want to do that. Okay, hold on, everybody. Hold on. Too many dicks on the dance floor. Too many dicks. Okay, that's not helping me because I need this over here. Okay. Now, can you see it? Yes, you can. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is U.S. versus Donald Trump. Count one. Oops. That's right. Count one, conspiracy to defraud the United States. Count two, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Count three, obstruction and attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. And conspiracy against rights. Oh, I like count four. I sure do. Trump used victims' families as a political prop. Yeah, at the border speech. Actually, I saw that one too, Jim. That was incredibly uncomfortable. There was one woman who was attacked by someone, and he brought her as an example of whatever migrant crime, and she seemed actually embarrassed to be there. So, people, it's okay to say no. If he comes to you or his campaign comes to you and says, would you please let me attend your daughter's funeral? You can say no. Jesus. Okay, here we go. Blair. The defendant, Donald Trump, was a candidate for president of the United States in 2020. He lost the 2020 presidential election. And if you don't think he did, then you need to show me your data, because I've looked at the data, so I know what I'm talking about. Despite having lost, the defendant, who was also the incumbent president, was determined to remain in power. So for more than 2 months following Election Day on November 3rd, 2020, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome determinative fraud in the election and that he had actually won. These claims were false, and the defendant knew that they were false. But the defendant and his campaign, defendant used his campaign to repeat and widely disseminate them anyway, to make his knowingly false claims appear legitimate, create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger, and erode public faith in the administration of the election. As a candidate and citizen, the defendant had a right, like every American, to speak publicly about the election and even to claim falsely that there had been outcome determinative fraud during the election and that he had won. He was also entitled to formally challenge the results of the election through lawful and appropriate means, such as by seeking recounts or audits of the popular vote in states or filing lawsuits challenging ballots and procedures. Yes, he's a losing loser who lost. Good morning, Carla. Indeed, in many cases, the defendant did pursue these methods of contesting the election results. His efforts to change the outcome in any state through recounts, audits, or legal challenges were uniformly unsuccessful. Shortly after Election Day, the defendant also pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election results. In so doing, the defendant perpetrated 3 criminal conspiracies. A conspiracy to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful federal government function by which the results of the presidential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government in violation of 18 U.S. Code 371. A conspiracy to corruptly obstruct and impede the January 6 congressional proceeding at which the collected results of the presidential election are counted and certified, the certification proceeding, in violation of 18 U.S. Code Section 1512, subsection K, or paragraph K, and a conspiracy against the right to vote and have one's vote counted as in violation of 18 U.S. Code Section 241. Hi, Peace Love. Good morning. Enjoy that cleaning. Each of these conspiracies, which built on the widespread mistrust the defendant was creating through pervasive and destabilizing lies about election fraud, targeted a bedrock function of the United States federal government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election, known as the federal government function. In furtherance of these conspiracies, the defendant tried but failed to enlist the vice president, who was also the defendant's running mate and, by virtue of the Constitution, the president of the Senate, who plays a ceremonial role in the January 6 certification proceeding. Count 1. Conspiracy to defraud the United States. The allegations contained in paragraphs 1 through 5 of the superseding indictment are re-alleged and fully incorporated here by reference. The conspiracy. From on or about November 13th, 2020 through on or about January 20th, 2021, in the District of Columbia and elsewhere, the defendant, Donald J. Trump, did knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with co-conspirators known and unknown to the grand jury to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful federal government function by which the results of the presidential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government. Purpose of the conspiracy was to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election by using knowingly false claims of election fraud to obstruct the federal government function by which those results are collected, counted, and certified. The defendants enlisted co-conspirators to assist him in his criminal efforts to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election and retain power. Oh, enlisted co-conspirators, sorry. These co-conspirators included the following individuals, none of whom were government officials during the conspiracies, and all of whom were acting in a private capacity. This is important because that was part of the carve-out that Clarence Thomas. So let me tell you why we're here. Let me explain again for the kids in the back. So why we're here is because the husband of the woman who helped Donald Trump try and hold on to power illegally, the husband of that woman is also on the Supreme Court. And he wrote a section of the most recent ruling that said that none of the conversations that Trump had with his employees, i.e. Mike Pence, Jeffrey Clark, etc., can be used as evidence because those are supposedly part of his official duties. So it doesn't even matter what he talked to them about. Okay, what are we doing? Are we getting really weird? Yeah, we're getting really weird. Okay, that's okay. The cats are going to get weird. Yes, Ginny. So you have a situation. Take the names out of it. You've got the wife of a Supreme Court justice who helps a guy try and stay in power. And then that Supreme Court justice tells the guy trying to hold the guy accountable for trying to stay in power that he says, oh, well, some of the stuff he did was fine. So he's now the jury, but he's married to the woman who helped the guy do the crime. Help me understand that. Help me understand. How's that work? How's that rule of law? Because what happens is there's this thing in courts, it's called recusing. And when you have a conflict of interest, like your wife was trying to help the person who's being held accountable for something, then you should recuse yourself because you have a personal connection to the crime. I'm just saying. Okay. We've already seen the text messages between Ginny and Mark Meadows. Okay. This is not like me making shit up. This is shit we already know. Oh my God. I wish I was on TV. I wish my show was bigger. I wish I had a bigger voice. I'm very frustrated, you all. I'm very frustrated. And not because I'm the person, but anybody. And I am frustrated that I don't have a bigger audience because, frankly, I feel like we do a good job here of trying to help people understand what the fuck is going on. Ugh. I know. It's dumb. Okay. Co-conspirator 1, a private attorney whom the defendant put in charge of his campaign's litigation efforts and who was willing to spread knowingly false claims and pursue strategies that the defendant's 2020 re-election campaign attorneys would not. That is Rudy Giuliani. I wonder if I can annotate this while I'm doing this. Can I do that? No. All right, fine. Anyway, that's Rudy Giuliani. Number A, co-conspirator 1. Co-conspirator 2, a private attorney who devised and attempted to implement a strategy to leverage the vice president's ceremonial role in overseeing the certification proceeding to obstruct the certification of the presidential election. That's John Eastman. This is Rudy. Number 1 is Rudy. Number 2 is John Eastman. Co-conspirator 3, a private attorney who made unfounded claims of election fraud that the defendant embraced and publicly amplified. That could be Sidney Powell. Co-conspirator 5, a private attorney who assisted in devising and attempting to implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of presidential electors to obstruct the certification proceeding. That, I think, is probably Cheesebro. That's Cheesebro and Roman, or Roman, but I think it's Cheesebro. Co-conspirator 6, a private political consultant who helped implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of electors to obstruct the certification proceeding. That's Ginny Thomas. I think that's Ginny Thomas. I don't know, but I think that's Ginny Thomas, which would just be so great. I'm sorry. All right. The federal government function by which the results of the election for President of the United States are collected, counted, and certified was established through the Constitution and the Electoral Count Act, ECA, as a federal law enacted in 1887. The Constitution provided that individuals called electors would select the president, that each state determine for itself how to appoint the electors apportioned to it. Through state laws, each of the 50 states and the District of Columbia chose to select their electors based on the popular vote in the state. After Election Day, the ECA required each state to formally determine or ascertain the electors who would represent the state's voters by casting electoral votes on behalf of the who had won the popular vote, and required the executive of each state to certify to the federal government the identities of those electors. Then, on a date set by the ECA, each state's ascertained electors were required to meet and collect the results of the presidential election. That is, to cast electoral votes based on their state's popular vote and to send their electoral votes along with the state's executive's certification that they were the state's legitimate electors to the United States Congress to be counted and certified in an official proceeding. Finally, the Constitution and ECA required that on the 6th of January following Election Day, the Congress meet in a joint session for a certification proceeding, presided over by the Vice President as President of the Senate, to count the electoral votes, resolve any objections, and announce the result, thus certifying the winner of the presidential election as president-elect. This federal government function, from the point of ascertainment to the certification, is foundational to the United States democratic process and, until 2021, had operated in a peaceful and orderly manner for more than 130 years. Manner and means. Let me take a minute. Trump is a magnet for really dumb attorneys. You know what it is, though, Jim? It's also that it's people that will do his bidding. Or people that, like there was that one lawyer, I can't remember his name now, but he quit pretty soon because he was like, I can't do the things that he's asking me to do, So I think there are just a lot of dishonest lawyers who are willing to do what they can for kind of fame and fortune. It's funny that none of them realize that he, A, doesn't pay his bills, and B, his lawyers end up getting disbarred. like literally. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like a very good bet to me. But there you go. Here we go. The defendant's conspiracy to impair, obstruct, and defeat the federal government. Where's my weed? Have I not had any weed yet? Oh my God. Literally an hour in and I've had no weed. I'm practically like, I practically gave weed up. Excuse me. Let me see if I can make this. Oh, I can't make it bigger. Okay. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Hold on. Oh, it's terrible. All right. I'm back. I'm back, baby. Okay. The defendant's conspiracy to impair, obstruct, and defeat the federal government function through dishonesty, fraud, and deceit included the following manner and means. The defendant and co-conspirators used knowingly false claims of election fraud to get state legislators and election officials to subvert the legitimate election results and change electoral votes for the defendant's opponent, Joseph R. Biden Jr., to electoral votes for the defendant. That is, on the pretext of baseless fraud claims, the defendant pushed officials in certain states to ignore the popular vote, disenfranchise millions of voters, dismiss legitimate electors, and ultimately cause the ascertainment of and voting by illegitimate electors in favor of the defendant. The defendant and co-conspirators organized fraudulent slates of electors in 7 targeted states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, attempting to mimic the procedures that the legitimate electors were supposed to follow under the Constitution and other federal and state laws. Hi, GP. I was literally just reporting a Trump breaking news tweet claiming that Australia has designated George Soros as a terrorist. Morons read this rubbish. Oh, of course they did. They don't even, you know what? George Soros doesn't even know what day it is. He runs a huge foundation, among other things, and he's like, I don't even know what you guys are talking about. I don't even go to that school. That's what he's saying. This included causing the fraudulent electors to meet on the day appointed by federal law, on which legitimate electors were to gather and cast their votes, cast fraudulent votes for the defendant, and sign certificates falsely representing that they were legitimate electors. Some fraudulent electors were tricked into participating based on the understanding that their votes would be used only if the defendant succeeded in outcome determinative lawsuits within their state, which the defendant never did. The defendant and co-conspirators then caused these fraudulent electors to transmit their false certificates to the vice president in his capacity as president of the Senate, and other government officials to be counted at the certification proceeding on January 6. I know GP's in it, man. He's helping. He's trying to keep Twitter somewhat human, and it's, going predictably well, but still. Fight the good fight. I believe in you. The defendant and co-conspirators attempted to enlist the vice president in his ceremonial role as president of the Senate at the January 6 certification proceeding to fraudulently alter the election results. First, using knowingly false claims of election fraud, the defendant and co-conspirators attempted to convince the vice president to use the defendant's fraudulent electors, reject legitimate electoral votes, or send them legitimate electoral votes to state legislatures for review rather than counting them. When that failed, on the morning of January 6, the defendant and co-conspirators repeated knowingly false claims of election fraud to gathered supporters, falsely told them that the vice president had the authority to and might alter the election results, and directed them to the Capitol to obstruct the certification proceeding and exert pressure on the vice president to take the fraudulent actions he had previously refused. After it became public on the afternoon of January 6 that the vice president, as president of the Senate, would not fraudulently alter the election results, a large and angry crowd, including many individuals whom the defendant had deceived into believing the vice president could and might change the election results, violently attacked the Capitol and halted the proceeding. As violence ensued, the defendant and co-conspirators exploited the disruption by redoubling efforts to levy false claims of election fraud and convince members of Congress to further delay the certification based on those claims. The defendant's knowledge of the falsity of election fraud claims. Throughout the conspiracies, the defendant, co-conspirators, and their agents made knowingly false claims that there had been outcome determinative fraud in the 2020 presidential election. These false claims were unsupported, objectively unreasonable, and ever-changing, and the defendant and co-conspirators repeated them even after they were publicly disproven. These prolific lies about election fraud included dozens of specific claims that there had been substantial fraud in certain states, such as the large number of dead, non-resident, non-citizen, or otherwise ineligible voters had cast ballots, or that voting machines had changed votes for the defendant to votes for Biden. These claims were false, and the defendant knew that they were false. The defendant was on notice that his claims were untrue. He was told so by those most invested in his re-election, including his own running mate and his campaign staff. Federal and state courts rejected every outcome determinative post-election lawsuit filed by the defendant, co-conspirators, and their allies. State officials, including election directors and secretaries of state in his own political party, issued public statements dispelling the defendants' and co-conspirators' myth of widespread election fraud. And on November 12th, the National Association of Secretaries of State, the National Association of State Election Directors, and other organizations issued a statement on behalf of several coordinated entities declaring the 2020 election to be, quote, the most secure in American history, and that there was, quote, no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. The defendant continued to make false claims nonetheless with deliberate disregard for the truth, including through his Twitter account. Throughout the conspiracies, although the defendant sometimes used his Twitter account to communicate with the public as president about official actions and policies, he also regularly used it for personal purposes, including to spread knowingly false claims of election fraud, exhort his supporters to travel to Washington, D.C. on January 6, pressure the vice president to misuse his ceremonial role in the certification proceeding, and leverage the events at the Capitol on January 6 to unlawfully retain power. Let me stop there and check in with people. You might have a conspiracy-gasm. Yes, there's a lot of conspiracies. She's funny. Carly, you are funny. It just comes naturally. Yeah, it's so true. Teresa, how you doing? Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. Okay, here we go. Blur, blur, blur. The defendant continued his lies through the day of the certification proceeding on January 6. That morning, the defendant gave a campaign speech at a privately funded, privately organized political rally held on the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. During that speech, the defendant used many of the same unsupported, objectively unreasonable, and publicly disproven lies to exhort the gathered crowd to march to the Capitol. Oh, wait. I had a guy working on my house on 1-5 and told me he was headed to D.C. the next day. I had no idea what was going to happen. He was the nicest guy in the world, but he belonged to a cult. Yeah. Oh, a church. Yeah. You should be vacuuming. Oh, well, but you could put earphones on. So you could, there's a solution. Although maybe you need an excuse not to vacuum. And I would be happy to be that excuse. I love shirking responsibilities. I think it's a beautiful way to live your life. Okay, the criminal agreement. To effect the object of the conspiracy, the defendant and co-conspirators committed one or more of the acts set forth below. The defendants, good morning to all of you best people. Yee! Have they named a former 3-star lieutenant? No. Carla, the problem is I don't see Flynn in this document. Oh my God, I just burped. I'm sorry. I don't see Flynn in this document at all. Oh, your earphones won't reach. Poop. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I don't see Flynn in the descriptions. I don't see Roger Stone either. Maybe Roger Stone. I don't know who the political consultant is. I have a feeling it's I think it's Ginny. I really do. I think it's Ginny because she is a consultant. Anyway, the defendant's use of deceit to get state officials to subvert the legitimate election results and change electoral votes. I use headphones, otherwise it would be a pig pen. Shortly after Election Day, which fell on November 3rd, 2020, the defendant launched his criminal scheme. On November 13th, the defendant's campaign attorneys conceded in court that he had lost the vote count in the state of Arizona, meaning, based on the assessment the defendant's campaign advisors had given him just a week earlier, the defendant had lost the election. So that day, defendant turned to co-conspirator 1, whom he announced on November 14th would spearhead his efforts going forward to challenge the election results. From that point on, the defendant and co-conspirators executed a strategy to use knowing deceit in the targeted states to impair, obstruct, and defeat the federal government function, including as described below. The defendant had no official responsibilities related to any state certification of the election results. Arizona, I'm coming home. I don't know. I don't really know any Arizona songs. So, on November 13th, 2020, the defendant had a conversation with his campaign manager, who informed him that a claim had been circulating that a substantial number of non-citizens had voted in Arizona was false. On November 22nd, 8 days before Arizona's governor certified the ascertainment of the state's legitimate electors based on the popular vote, the defendant and co-conspirator 1 called the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives and made knowingly false claims of election fraud aimed at interfering with the ascertainment of and voting by Arizona's electors as follows. Woo-hoo. The defendant and co-conspirator 1 falsely asserted, among other things, that a substantial number of non-citizens, non-residents, and dead people had voted fraudulently in Arizona. The Arizona House Speaker asked co-conspirator 1 for evidence of the claims, which co-conspirator 1 did not have, but claimed he would provide. Co-conspirator 1 never did so. The defendant and co-conspirator 1 asked the Arizona House Speaker to call the legislature into session to hold a hearing based on their claims of election fraud. The Arizona House Speaker refused, stating that doing so would require a 2/3 vote of its members, and he would not allow it without actual evidence of fraud. The defendant... Hi, Paul J. Oh, they do. The Scorpions? Okay. You voted yesterday and you're dead? I'm dead tired. Okay. Let's see. Okay. The defendant and co-conspirator 1 asked the Arizona House Speaker to use the legislature to circumvent the process by which legitimate electors would be ascertained for Biden based on the popular vote and replace those electors with a new slate for the defendant. The Arizona House Speaker refused, responding that the suggestion was beyond anything he had ever heard or thought of as something within his authority. I think that was, who was that guy? Who was the Arizona Speaker? Corky or something? I don't remember what his name is. On December 1st, co-conspirator 1 met with the Arizona House Speaker. When the Arizona House Speaker again asked co-conspirator 1 for evidence of outcome determined, this is December 1st. When the Arizona House Speaker again asked co-conspirator 1 for evidence of the outcome determinative election fraud he and the defendant had been claiming, co-conspirator 1 responded with words to the effect of, quote, "We don't have the evidence, but we have lots of theories," end quote. On December 4th, the Arizona House Speaker issued a public statement that said, in part, "No election is perfect, and if there were evidence of illegal votes or an improper count, then Arizona law provides a process to contest the election, a lawsuit under state law. But the law does not authorize the legislature to reverse the results of an election. As a conservative Republican, I don't like the results of the presidential election. I voted for President Trump and worked hard to re-elect him. But I cannot and will not entertain a suggestion that we violate current law to change the outcome of a certified election. I and my fellow legislators swore an oath to support the United States Constitution and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona. It would violate that oath, the basic principles of Republican government, and the rule of law if we attempted to nullify the people's vote based on unsupported theories of fraud. Under laws that we wrote and voted upon, Arizona voters choose who wins, and our system requires that their choice be respected." Let me check. Hi, Paul J. Oh, good. I'm glad. I know it's early. On the morning of January 4th, 2021, co-conspirator 2, who we think is, I can't remember now, called the Arizona House Speaker to urge him to use a majority of the legislature to decertify the state's legitimate electors. Arizona's validly ascertained electors had voted 3 weeks, I think it's John Eastman, had voted 3 weeks earlier and sent their votes to Congress, which was scheduled to count those votes in Biden's favor in just 2 days' time at the January 6th certification proceeding. When the Arizona House Speaker explained that state investigations had uncovered no evidence of substantial fraud in the state, co-conspirator 2 conceded that he, quote, didn't know enough about the facts on the ground in Arizona, but nonetheless told the Arizona House Speaker to decertify and let the courts sort it out. The Arizona House Speaker refused, stating that he would not, quote, play with the oath that he had taken to uphold the United States Constitution and Arizona law. In his campaign speech on January 6, the defendant publicly repeated the knowingly false claim that 36,000 non-citizens had voted in Arizona. Georgia. As early as mid-November, the defendant's senior campaign advisor informed the defendant that his claims of a large number of dead voters in Georgia were untrue. On November 16, 2020, on the defendant's behalf, his executive assistant sent co-conspirator 3, and that's who I think is Cheesebro, and others a document containing bullet points critical of a certain voting machine company, writing, "See attached. Please include as is or almost as is in lawsuit." Co-conspirator 3 responded 9 minutes later, writing, apparently screaming. It must go in all suits in Georgia and Pennsylvania immediately with a fraud claim that requires the entire election to be set aside in those states and the machines impounded for nonpartisan professional inspection. On November 25th, co-conspirator 3 filed a lawsuit against the governor of Georgia, falsely alleging massive election fraud accomplished through the voting machine company's election software and hardware. Before the lawsuit was even filed, the defendant retweeted a post promoting it. Co-conspirator 3's Georgia lawsuit was dismissed on December 7th. On December 3rd, co-conspirator 1 orchestrated a presentation to a judiciary subcommittee of the Georgia State Senate with the intention of misleading state senators into blocking the ascertainment of legitimate electors. During the presentation, a campaign attorney and agent of the defendant and co-conspirator 1 falsely claimed that more than 10,000 dead people voted in Georgia. This must be John Eastman, because I think he's the one that, I mean, I know for a fact he testified on something. That afternoon, a senior advisor to the defendant told the defendant's chief of staff through text messages, just an FYI, quote, this is a quote, a campaign lawyer and his team verified that the 10K supposed dead people voting in Georgia is not accurate. It was alleged in co-conspirator 1's hearing today, end quote. The senior advisor clarified that he believed the actual number was 12. Not 12,000, 12. Another agent of the defendant and co-conspirator 1 played a misleading excerpt of a video recording of a ballot counting at State Farm Arena in Atlanta and insinuated that it showed election workers counting suitcases of illegal ballots. Co-conspirator 2, and that would be what was adjudicated in court and now is ruining Rudy Giuliani because he has to pay Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss for the defamation. So, again, adjudicated, found guilty of lying. Lying. Co-conspirator 2 encouraged the legislators to decertify, Jesus Christ. Let's have some more coffee. The state's legitimate electors based on false allegations of election fraud. Rudy's so screwed. I mean, he's I don't know. He should think about, I mean, does he have life insurance? Because he might want to think about it. One was Giuliani, Eastman, Cheeseborough. Okay, thank you so much, Neil. I know, we need uniform numbers. Co-conspirator 2 encouraged the legislators to decertify. Okay, I think co-conspirator 2 is... No, co-conspirator 1. Okay, I think that's Eastman. But anyway, yeah. Whoops. Also, on December 3rd, the defendant issued a tweet amplifying the knowingly false claims made in co-conspirator 1's presentation in Georgia. Quote, wow, blockbuster testimony taking place right now in Georgia. Ballot stuffing by Dems when Republicans were forced to leave the large counting room. Plenty more coming, but this alone leads to an easy win of the state. Oh, brother. On December 4th, the Georgia Secretary of State's chief operating officer debunked the claims made at co-conspirator 1's presentation the previous day, issuing a tweet stating, the 90-second video of election workers at State Farm Arena purporting to show fraud was watched in its entirety, hours, by Georgia Secretary of State investigators, shows normal ballot processing. Here is the fact check on it. On December 7th, he reiterated during a press conference that the claim that there had been misconduct at State Farm Arena was false. On December 8th, the defendant called the Georgia Attorney General to pressure him to support an election lawsuit filed in the Supreme Court by another state's Attorney General, which sought to invalidate election results in certain targeted states like Pennsylvania. Well, that would have been little Kenny Paxton. Little tiny Kenny Paxton in Texas, who brought the big mean case saying, oh, we lost, so we don't like it. You know, whatever. I don't know. The biggest cheaters. God, you know, you fucking Republicans are the biggest fucking cheaters in the world. Really. The Georgia Attorney General told the defendant that officials had investigated various claims of election fraud in the state, including the State Farm Arena allegations, and were not seeing evidence to support them. The following day, represented by co-conspirator 2, the defendant, not as president, but in his capacity as a candidate for office, moved to intervene and join the state attorney general's lawsuit. And on December 11th, the Supreme Court denied the suit. I know, Rudy could have been living the fucking life. He really could have. He could have lived the life of America's mayor and just been, recognized at restaurants and that I bet you he would have been super happy. But he was greedy. And when you're greedy and you've broken the law, like don't forget, Rudy has another suit coming by his personal assistant whom he sexually abused for years. Noelle Dunphy is about to have her trial against him where he sexually abused her. I'm telling you, he's not. Well, he can't now because all his shit is coming out. Okay? He literally is about to lose it all as if there was anything else to lose. And he did it himself. So you know what? I'll shed no tear and I might just dance on his grave. Because you know what? Who cares? He made this bed and he's got to be buried in it, frankly. The sooner the better. Okay. Sorry. I know. I just can't stand him. Like what he's done to those women's lives is absolutely, he should be like publicly flogged for it. That's how terrible I feel. I will dance on his grave. I will dance a lot. A lot. Thank you, Carla. I look forward to it. I hope he dies alone and in a prison cell, very scared and very lonely and very sad. That's what I hope. I think that would be the best I can hope for. On December 8th, the defendant called the Georgia Attorney General told the defendant that officials had investigated various claims of election fraud in the state, including the State Farm Arena allegations, and were not seeing evidence to support them. December 11th, the Supreme Court denied the suit. Also on December 8th, a senior campaign advisor who spoke with the defendant on a daily basis and informed him on multiple occasions that various fraud claims were untrue, expressed frustration that many of co-conspirator 1 and his legal team's claims could not be substantiated. With respect to the persistent false claim regarding State Farm Arena, the senior campaign advisor wrote in an email, "When our research and campaign legal team can't back up any of the claims made by our elite strike force legal team, you can see why we're 0 and 32 on our cases. I'll obviously hustle to help on all fronts, but it's tough to own any of this when it's all just conspiracy shit beamed down from the mothership." Who said that? The senior campaign advisor. Who was that? Who was that? I wonder who that was. On December 10th, 4 days before, don't step in my ear. Oh, that's right, because you'll have pissed on his grave. I get it. All right, I'm caught up. We'll dance around it. On December 10th, 4 days before Biden's validly ascertained electors were scheduled to cast votes and send them to Congress, co-conspirator 1 appeared at a hearing before the Georgia House of Representatives Government Affairs Committee. Co-conspirator 1 played the State Farm Arena video again and falsely claimed that it showed, quote, voter fraud right in front of people's eyes and was, quote, the tip of the iceberg. Then he cited 2 election workers by name, basically accused them of quite obviously surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they are vials of heroin or cocaine, and suggested that they were criminals whose, quote, places of work, their homes, should have been searched for evidence of ballots, for evidence of USB ports, for evidence of voter fraud. Thereafter, the 2 election workers received numerous death threats. On December 31st, the defendant signed a verification affirming false election fraud allegations made on his behalf in a lawsuit filed in his capacity as a candidate for president against the Georgia governor and Secretary of State. In advance of the filing, co-conspirator 1, who was advising the defendant on the lawsuit, acknowledged in an email that he and the defendant had, since signing a previous verification, quote, been made aware that some of the allegations and evidence proffered by the experts has been inaccurate, and that signing a new affirmation, quote, with that knowledge and incorporation by reference would not be accurate. The defendant and co-conspirator 2 caused the defendant's signed verification to be filed nonetheless. On January 2nd, 4 days before Congress's certification proceeding, the defendant, his chief of staff, who sometimes handled private and campaign-related logistics for the defendant, and private attorneys involved in the lawsuit against Georgia's Secretary of State, called the Secretary of State. During the call, the defendant lied to the Secretary of State to induce him to alter Georgia's popular vote count and call into question the validity of the Biden electors' votes, which had been transmitted to Congress weeks before, including as follows. The defendant raised allegations regarding the State Farm arena video and repeatedly disparaged one of the same election workers that co-conspirator 1 had maligned on December 10th, using her name almost 20 times and falsely referring to her as, quote, a professional vote scammer and hustler. In response, the Georgia Secretary of State refuted this. Quote, you're talking about the State Farm video, and I think it's extremely unfortunate that co-conspirator 1 or his people, they sliced and diced that video and took it out of context. When the Georgia Secretary of State then offered a link to a video that would disprove co-conspirator 1's claims, the defendant responded, I don't care about a link. I don't need it. I have a much Georgia Secretary of State. Oh, Brad. I have a much better link. That's what he said. Ew. The defendant asked about rumors that paper ballots cast in the election were being destroyed, and the Georgia Secretary of State's counsel explained to him that the claim had been investigated and was not true. The defendant claimed that 5,000 dead people voted in Georgia, causing the Secretary of State to respond, well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is that the data you have is wrong. The actual number were two. Two people that were dead voted. And so your information's wrong. That was 2. I wonder if one of these is Cleta Mitchell. I'm sorry. I shouldn't start guessing because there's people like Cleta Mitchell was involved in this part of it. So she was on this phone call. Maybe I'll visit after the dancing. Yeah. Oh, that's probably true. Well, we could watch out. I could wear galoshes. I could dance in galoshes. It's fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. The defendant claimed that thousands of out-of-state voters had cast ballots in Georgia's election, which the Georgia Secretary of State's counsel refuted, explaining, we've been going through each of those as well. And those numbers that we got, that defendant's counsel was just saying, they're not accurate. Every one we've been through are people that lived in Georgia, moved to a different state, but then moved back to Georgia legitimately. And they moved back in years ago. This was not like something just before the election. In response to multiple other of the defendant's allegations, the Georgia Secretary of State's counsel told the defendant that the Georgia Bureau of Investigation was examining all such claims and finding no merit to them. The defendant said that he needed to find, quote, 11,780 votes and insinuated that the Georgia Secretary of State and his counsel could be subject to criminal prosecution if they failed to find election fraud as he demanded, stating, quote, and you are going to find that they are, which is totally illegal. It's more illegal for you than it is for them because you know what they did and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal, that's a criminal offense. And, you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and the Georgia Secretary of State's counsel, your lawyer. The next day, on January 3rd, the defendant falsely claimed that the Georgia Secretary of State had not addressed the defendant's allegations, publicly stating that Georgia Secretary of State was, quote, unwilling or unable to answer questions such as the ballots under table scam, ballot destruction, out-of-state voters, dead voters, and more. He has no clue. All right, let me catch up. Just find me 11,780 tokes. Yeah, 2,000 fuels. 2,000 joules, 2,000 fools. Yes. Well, not that one, but the ballot box stuffing was. But that turned out to be a lie, too. Yes, indeed. 2,000 mules was disproven in court. But does MAGA know that? No, because they don't listen to real news. Okay. Well, it's in the court records, so I don't know what to tell you, folks. You can keep your head up your ass only so long, but then you're going to have to pull it out at one point or another. In Michigan, on November 20th, 2020, after outreach by the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, and just 3 days before Michigan's governor signed a certificate of ascertainment notifying the federal government that, based on the popular vote, Biden's electors were to represent Michigan's voters, The defendant held a meeting in the Oval Office with the Speaker of the Michigan House of Representatives and the Majority Leader of the Michigan Senate. The defendant included in the meeting by phone the RNC chairwoman who joined only briefly and co-conspirator 1. The defendant and co-conspirator 1 raised false fraud claims, including of an illegitimate vote dump in Detroit. In response, the Michigan Senate Majority Leader told the defendant that he had lost Michigan not because of fraud, but because the defendant had underperformed with certain voter populations in the state. Upon leaving their meeting, the Michigan House Speaker and Michigan Senate Majority Leader issued a statement reiterating this. This is better than coffee to get my blood flowing. I know. I don't know. Wait, will they what? Damn it. I never remember what I just fucking said. Okay. The Senate and House Oversight Committees are actively engaged in a thorough review of Michigan's election process, and we have faith in the committee process to provide greater transparency and accountability to our citizens. We have not yet been made aware of any information that would change the outcome of the election in Michigan, and as legislative leaders, we will follow the law and follow the normal process regarding Michigan's electors, just as we have said throughout this election. On December 4th, co-conspirator 1 sent a text message to the Michigan House Speaker reiterating his unsupported claim of election fraud and attempting to get the Michigan House Speaker to assist in reversing the ascertainment of the legitimate Biden electors, stating, quote, looks like Georgia may well hold some factual hearings and change the certification under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution. As co-conspirator 2 explained, they just don't have the right to do it, but the obligation. Help me get this done in Michigan. And similarly, on December 7th, despite still having established no fraud in Michigan, co-conspirator 1 sent a text intended for the Michigan Senate Majority Leader, quote, so I need you to pass a joint resolution from the Michigan legislature that states that the election is in dispute. There's an ongoing investigation by the legislature, and the electors sent by Governor Whitmer are not the official electors of the state of Michigan and do not fall within the safe harbor deadline of December 8th under Michigan law. On December 14th, the day that electors in states across the country were required to vote and submit their votes to Congress, the Michigan House Speaker and Michigan Senate Majority Leader announced that, contrary to the defendant's request, they would not decertify the legitimate election results or electors in Michigan. The Michigan Senate Majority Leader's public statement included, quote, we have not received evidence of fraud on a scale that would change the outcome of the election in Michigan. The Michigan House Speaker's public statement read in part, we've diligently examined these reports of fraud to the best of our ability. I fought hard for President Trump. Nobody wanted him to win more than me. I think he's done an incredible job. When? But I love our republic, too. I can't fathom risking our norms, traditions, and institutions to pass a resolution retroactively changing the electors for Trump simply because some think that there may have been enough widespread fraud to give him a win. That's unprecedented for good reason, and that's why there is not enough support in this House to cast a new slate of electors. I fear we'd lose our country forever. This truly would bring mutually assured destruction for every future election in regards to the Electoral College, and I can't stand for that. I won't. In his campaign speech on January 6, 2021, the defendant publicly repeated his knowingly false claim regarding an illicit dump of more than 100,000 ballots in Detroit. Pennsylvania. On November 11, 2020, the defendant publicly maligned a Philadelphia city commissioner for stating on the news that there was no evidence of widespread fraud in Philadelphia. As a result, the Philadelphia city commissioner and his family received death threats. On November 25th, the day after Pennsylvania's governor signed a certificate of ascertainment and thus certified to the federal government that Biden's electors were the legitimate electors for the state, co-conspirator 1 orchestrated an event at a hotel in Gettysburg attended by state legislators. Co-conspirator 1 falsely claimed, I cannot wait to see Rudy Giuliani in a courtroom, or at least pictures of it. Co-conspirator 1 falsely claimed that Pennsylvania had issued 1.8 million absentee ballots and received 2.5 million in return. In the days thereafter, a campaign staffer wrote internally that the co-conspirator 1's allegation was just wrong, and there's no way to defend it. The deputy campaign manager responded, we have been saying this for a while. It's very frustrating. On December 6, after 4 Republican leaders of the Pennsylvania legislature issued a public statement that the General Assembly lacked the authority to overturn the popular vote and appoint its own slate of electors, and that doing so would violate the state election code and constitution, the defendant retweeted a post labeling the legislators cowards. In his campaign speech on January 6th, the defendant, I love how they're just labeling everything campaign. Like, that's so perfect. The defendant publicly repeated his knowingly false claim that there had been 205,000 more votes than voters in Pennsylvania, which he still says today. It's great. Wisconsin. On November 29, 2020, a recount in Wisconsin that the defendant's campaign had petitioned and paid for did not change the election result, and in fact increased the defendant's margin of defeat. On December 14th, the Wisconsin Supreme Court rejected an election challenge by the campaign. One justice wrote, quote, "Nothing in this case cast any legitimate doubt that the people of Wisconsin lawfully chose Vice President Biden and Senator Harris to be the next leaders of our great country." On December 21st, as a result of the state Supreme Court's decision, Wisconsin governor, who had signed a certificate of ascertainment on November 30th identifying Biden's electors as the state's legitimate electors, signed a certificate of final determination in which he recognized that the state Supreme Court had resolved a controversy regarding the appointment of Biden's electors and confirmed that Biden had received the highest number of votes in the state and that his electors were the state's legitimate electors. That same day, in response to the court decision that had prompted the Wisconsin governor to sign a certificate of final determination, the defendant issued a tweet repeating his knowingly false claim of election fraud and demanding that the Wisconsin legislature overturn the election results that had led to the ascertainment of Biden's electors as the legitimate electors. In his campaign speech on January 6th, the defendant publicly repeated knowingly false claims that there had been tens of thousands of unlawful votes in Wisconsin. The defendant's use of dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to organize fraudulent slates of electors and cause them to transmit false certificates to Congress. As the defendant's attempts to obstruct the electoral vote through deceit of state officials met with repeated failure, beginning in early December 2020, he and co-conspirators developed a new plan to marshal individuals who would have served as the defendant's electors had he won the popular vote in 7 targeted states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and cause those individuals to make and send the vice president and Congress false certifications that they were legitimate electors. Under the plan, the submission of these fraudulent slates would create a fake controversy at the certification proceeding and position the vice president, presiding on January 6 as president of the Senate, to supplant legitimate electors with the defendant's fake electors and certify the defendant as president. The defendant had no official responsibilities related to the convening of legitimate electors or their signing and mailing of their certificates of vote. Trump has said the elections have been rigged since 2016. He's said it over and over and over again, just like all the other lies. I know. And that's the thing. He definitely is like, I know, I totally live this crap. I'm telling you, butterflies. I could listen to this stuff all day. I love these legal documents. I do. Okay, let's see. Okay. The plan capitalized on ideas presented in memoranda drafted by co-conspirator 5, an attorney who was assisting the defendant's campaign with legal efforts related to a recount in Wisconsin. Well, that might be Cheesebro or Roman. I'm not sure who that is. I need smarter brains to tell me who these people are. Definitely number 1 is Rudy, but the memoranda evolved over time from a legal strategy to preserve the defense. Oh, this is bitch. That's Eastman. Oh, wait. Drafted the memo? Oh, yeah. Drafted the memo was Eastman. The memoranda evolved over time from a legal strategy to preserve the defendant's rights to a corrupt plan to subvert the federal government function by stopping Biden's electors' votes from being counted and certified as follows. Okay, I'm not even going to say because this could be a couple different people. The November 18th memorandum, the Wisconsin memo, advocated that because of the ongoing recount in Wisconsin, the defendant's electors there should meet and cast votes on December 14th, the date the ECA required appointed electors to vote, to preserve the alternative of the defendant's Wisconsin elector slate in the event the defendant ultimately prevailed in the state. The December 6th memorandum, fraudulent elector memo, marked a sharp departure from co-conspirator 5's Wisconsin memo advocating that the alternate electors originally conceived of to preserve rights in Wisconsin instead be used in a number of states as fraudulent electors to prevent Biden from receiving the 270 electoral votes necessary to secure the presidency on January 6. The fraudulent elector memo suggested that the defendants' electors in 6 purportedly, quote, contested states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, should meet and mimic as best as possible the actions of the legitimate Biden electors, and that on January 6th, the vice president should open and count the fraudulent votes, setting up a fake controversy that would derail the proper certification of Biden as president-elect. Always waiting for the next shoe to drop. It's so true. It's so true. The December 9th memorandum, Fraudulent Elector Instructions, consisted of co-conspirator 5's instructions on how fraudulent electors could mimic legitimate electors in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Co-conspirator 5 noted that in some states it would be virtually impossible for the fraudulent electors to successfully take the same steps as the legitimate electors because state law required formal participation in the process by state officials or access to official resources. The plan began in early December, and ultimately the conspirators and the defendant's campaign took the Wisconsin memo and expanded it to any state that the defendant claimed was contested, even New Mexico, which the defendant had lost by more than 10% of the popular vote. This expansion was forecast by emails the defendant's chief of staff sent on December 6, forwarding the Wisconsin memo to campaign staff and writing, quote, "We just need to have someone coordinating the electors for states." Oh, dear. On December 6, the defendant and co-conspirator 2 called the RNC chairwoman to ensure that the plan was in motion. During the call, co-conspirator 2 told the RNC chairwoman that it was important for the RNC to help the defendant's campaign gather electors in targeted states, and falsely represented to her that such electors' votes would be used only if ongoing litigation in one of the states changed the results in the defendant's favor. After the RNC chairwoman consulted the campaign and heard that work on gathering electors was underway, she called and reported this information to the defendant, who responded approvingly. So are we going to get to hear from Rana? Is her fat ass going to be sitting in a chair somewhere answering some questions? I was assaulted. Oh, really? The Arlington Semirate was female? Oh, my God. Was it really Corey, though? Do we know it was Corey Lewandowski? There's a few shitheads on his campaign, let me tell you. Chris LaSavita is one of them. Okay, on December 7th, co-conspirator 1 received the Wisconsin memo and fraudulent elector memo. Co-conspirator 1 spoke with co-conspirator 6 regarding attorneys who could assist in the fraudulent elector effort in the targeted states, and he received from co-conspirator 6 an email identifying attorneys in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. The next day, on December 8th, co-conspirator 5 called the Arizona attorney on co-conspirator 6's list. In an email after the call, the Arizona attorney recounted his conversation with co-conspirator 5 as follows. "I just talked to the gentleman who did that memo, co-conspirator 5. His idea is basically that all of us," and I think that is Cheesebro, or did we say that was Cheesebro or Roman? I don't know. His idea is basically that all of us, the 6 states, have our electors send in their votes, even though the votes aren't legal under federal law because they're not signed by the governor, so that members of Congress can fight about whether they should be counted on January 6. They could potentially argue that they're not bound by federal law because they're Congress and they make the law, etc. Kind of wild and creative. I'm happy to discuss. My comment to him was that I guess there's no harm in it, legally at least, i.e., we would just be sending in fake electoral votes to Pence so that someone in Congress can make an objection when they start counting votes and start arguing that the, quote, fake votes should be counted. Oh, I'm so glad they wrote it all down. At co-conspirator 1's direction on December 10th, co-conspirator 5 sent 2 points of contact in all targeted states except Wisconsin, which had already received his memos, and New Mexico, a streamlined version of the Wisconsin memo, which did not reveal the intended fraudulent use of the defendant's electors and the fraudulent elector instructions, along with fraudulent elector certificates that he had drafted. That's Cheesebro. The next day, on December 11th, through co-conspirator 5, co-conspirator 1 suggested that the Arizona lawyer file a petition for certiorari in the Supreme Court as a pretext to the claim that litigation was pending in the state to provide cover for the convening and voting of the defendants' fraudulent electors there. Jesus Christ. Co-conspirator 5 explained that co-conspirator 1 had heard from a state official and state provisional elector that, quote, it could appear treasonous for the Arizona electors to vote on Monday if there is no pending court proceeding. Okay. I think I need some coffee. These people are crazy. I guess I just wonder, did people like Bannon and Stone not do enough to actually be held responsible for anything? Is that what it is? Is it just like they didn't do enough to be actually guilty of anything? I don't get it. I don't really get it. Okay. To manage the plan in Pennsylvania, on December 12th, co-conspirator 1, co-conspirator 5, and co-conspirator 6 participated in a conference call organized by the defendant's campaign with the defendant's electors in that state. When the defendant's electors expressed concern about signing certificates representing themselves as legitimate electors, co-conspirator 1 falsely assured them that their certificates would be used only if the defendant succeeded in litigation. Subsequently, co-conspirator 6 circulated proposed conditional language to that effect for potential inclusion in the fraudulent elector certificates. A campaign official cautioned not to offer the conditional language to other states because, quote, the other states are signing what he prepared. If it gets out we change language for Pennsylvania, it could snowball, end quote. In some cases, defendants' electors refused to participate in the plan. Where? I suppose in some states they did. On December 13th, co-conspirator 5 sent co-conspirator 1 an email memorandum that further confirmed the conspirators' plan was not to use the fraudulent electors only in the circumstance that the defendant's litigation was successful in one of the targeted states. Instead, the plan was to falsely present the fraudulent slates as an alternative to the legitimate slates at Congress's certification proceeding. On the same day, the defendant asked the senior campaign advisor for an update on, quote, what was going on with the elector plan and directed him to, quote, put out a statement on the electors. As a result, he did? Wait, he did? Oh, that's interesting. When the senior campaign advisor related these developments in text messages to the deputy campaign manager, a senior advisor to the defendant, and a campaign staffer, the deputy campaign manager responded, here's the thing, the way this has morphed, it's a crazy play, so I don't know who wants to put their name on it. The senior advisor wrote, quote, certifying illegal votes. In turn, the participants in the group text message refused to have a statement regarding electors attributed to their names because none of them could, quote, stand by it. Well, are you standing by it now? How about Operation Swipe Left? Yeah, right. How about that? Also on December 13th, at a campaign staffer's request, co-conspirator 5 drafted and sent fraudulent elector certificates for the defendant's electors in New Mexico, which had not previously been among the targeted states and where there was no pending litigation on the defendant's behalf. The next day, the defendant's campaign filed an election challenge suit in New Mexico at 11:54 a.m., 6 minutes before the noon deadline for the electors' votes, as a pretext so that there was pending litigation at the time the fraudulent electors voted. Oh my God. On December 14th, the legitimate electors of all 50 states and the District of Columbia met in their respective jurisdictions to formally cast their votes for president, resulting in a total of 232 electoral votes for the defendant and 306 for Biden. The legitimate electoral votes that Biden won in the states the defendant targeted and the defendant's margin of defeat were as follows. Arizona, 11 electoral votes, 10,457 votes. Georgia's 16 electoral votes, 11,779 votes. Michigan, for 16 electoral votes, 154,188 votes. Nevada, 6 electoral votes, 33,596 votes. New Mexico, 5 electoral votes, 99,720 votes. Pennsylvania, 20 electoral votes, 80,555. And Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes with 20,682 votes separating Biden and Trump. On the same day, at the direction of the defendant and co-conspirator 1, fraudulent electors convened sham proceedings in the 7 targeted states to cast fraudulent electoral ballots in favor of the defendant. In some states, in order to satisfy legal requirements set forth for legitimate electors under state law, state officials were enlisted to provide fraudulent electors access to the state capitol building so that they could gather and vote there. In many cases, however, as co-conspirator 5 had predicted in the fraudulent elector instructions, the fraudulent electors were unable to satisfy the legal requirements. Nonetheless, as directed in the fraudulent elector instructions shortly after the fraudulent electors met on December 14th, the targeted states' fraudulent certificates were mailed to the President of the Senate, the Archivist of the United States, and others. The defendant and co-conspirators ultimately used the certificates of these fraudulent electors to deceitfully target the government function, and did so contrary to how fraudulent electors were told they would be used. Unlike those of the fraudulent electors consistent with the ECA, the legitimate electors' signed certificates were annexed to the state executive certificates of ascertainment before being sent to the President of the Senate and others. That evening at 6:26 p.m., the RNC chairwoman forwarded to the defendant, through his executive assistant, an email titled Electors Recap Final, which represented that in 6 contested states, Arizona, blah, 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 the defendant electors had voted in parallel to Biden's electors. The defendant's executive assistant responded, quote, "It's in front of him." The defendant attempts to enlist the vice president to fraudulently alter the election results at the January 6 certification proceeding. As the January 6 congressional certification proceeding approached and his other efforts to impair, obstruct, and defeat the federal government function failed, the defendant sought to enlist the vice president to assist in the plan to use his role as president of the Senate to fraudulently alter the election results. The defendant had no official responsibilities related to the certification proceeding, but he did have a personal interest as a candidate in being named the winner of the election. All of the conversations between the defendant and vice president described below focused on the defendant maintaining power. When his efforts to use the vice president's role as president of the Senate failed, the defendant attempted to use a crowd of supporters that he had gathered in Washington to pressure the vice president to fraudulently alter the election. On December 19th, 2020, after cultivating widespread anger and resentment for weeks with his knowingly false claims of election fraud, the defendant urged his supporters to travel to Washington on the day of the certification proceeding, tweeting, quote, "Big protest in D.C. on January 6. Be there. Will be wild." Throughout late December and early January, the defendant repeatedly urged his supporters to come to Washington for January 6. On December 23rd, the defendant retweeted a memo titled, quote, "Operation Pence Card." Oh, my God. Ivan Raiklin. It's Ivan Raiklin, everybody. Little gremlin. Just the tip. On December 21st, the defendant retweeted a memo titled Operation Pence Card, which falsely asserted that the vice president could, among other things, unilaterally disqualify legitimate electors from 6 targeted states. On the same day, co-conspirator 2 circulated a 2-page memorandum outlining a plan for the vice president to unlawfully declare the defendant the certified winner of the presidential election. Just 2 months earlier, on October 11th, co-conspirator 2 had taken the opposite position, writing that neither the Constitution nor the ECA provided the vice president discretion in the counting of electoral votes or permitted him to, quote, "make the determination on his own." On December 25th, when the vice president called the defendant to wish him a Merry Christmas, the defendant quickly turned the conversation to January 6 and his request that the vice president, as president of the Senate, reject electoral votes that day. The vice president pushed back, telling the defendant, as the vice president already had in previous conversations, quote, "You know, I don't think I have the authority to change the outcome." On January 1st, the defendant called the vice president and berated him because he had learned that the vice president had opposed a lawsuit seeking a judicial decision that at the certification, the vice president had the authority to reject or return votes to the states under the Constitution. The vice president responded that he thought there was no constitutional basis for such authority and that it was improper. In response, the defendant told the vice president, quote, "You're too honest." Within hours of the conversation, the defendant reminded his supporters to meet in Washington before the certification proceeding, tweeting, quote, "The big protest rally in Washington, D.C. will take place at 11 a.m. on January 6. Locational details to follow. Stop the steal." On January 3rd, the defendant again told the vice president that at the certification proceeding, the vice president had the absolute right to reject electoral votes and the ability to overturn the election. The vice president responded that he had no such authority and that a federal appeals court had rejected the lawsuit making that claim the previous day. On January 3rd, co-conspirator 2 circulated a second memorandum that included a new plan under which, contrary to the ECA, the vice president would send the elector slates to the state legislatures to determine which slate to count. On January 4th, the defendant held a meeting with co-conspirator 2, the vice president's chief of staff, and the vice president's counsel. The defendant's White House counsel did not attend. During the meeting, as reflected in the vice president's contemporaneous notes, the defendant made knowingly false claims of election fraud, including, quote, "Bottom line, won every state by hundreds of thousands of votes," and, quote, "We won every state." The defendant and co-conspirator 2 then asked the vice president to either unilaterally reject the legitimate electors from the 7 targeted states or send the question of which slate was legitimate to the targeted states' legislatures. When the vice president challenged co-conspirator 2 on whether the proposal to return the question to the states was defensible, co-conspirator 2 responded, quote, "Well, nobody's tested it before." This is John Eastman. The vice president then told the defendant, "Did you hear that? Even your own counsel is not saying I have that authority." The defendant responded, quote, "That's okay. I prefer the other suggestion of the vice president rejecting the electors unilaterally." Also on January 4th, when co-conspirator 2 acknowledged to the senior advisor that no court would support his proposal, senior advisor told co-conspirator 2, quote, "You're going to cause riots in the streets." Cocaine. How about, yeah. Co-conspirator 2 responded that there had previously been points in the nation's history where violence was necessary to protect the republic. Wow. On the morning of January 5th, at the defendant's direction, the vice president's chief of staff and the vice president's counsel met again with co-conspirator 2. Co-conspirator 2 now advocated that the vice president do what the defendant had said he preferred the day before, unilaterally reject electors from the targeted states. During this meeting, co-conspirator 2 privately acknowledged to the vice president's counsel that he hoped to prevent judicial review of his proposal because he understood that it would be unanimously rejected by the Supreme Court. Well, maybe not now. The vice president's counsel expressed to co-conspirator 2 that following through with the proposal would result in a, quote, "disastrous situation where the election, quote, might have to be decided in the streets." That same day, the defendant encouraged supporters to travel to Washington on January 6, and he set the false expectation that the vice president had the authority to and might use his ceremonial role as president of the Senate at the certification proceeding to reverse the election outcome in the defendant's favor, issuing the following tweets. At 11:06 a.m., quote, "The vice president has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors," end quote. This was within 40 minutes of the defendant's earlier reminder, "See you in D.C." At 5:43 p.m., quote, "I will be speaking at the Save America rally tomorrow on the Ellipse at 11 a.m. Eastern. Arrive early, doors open at 7 a.m. Eastern. Big crowds." Also on January 5th, the defendant met alone with the vice president. When the vice president refused to agree to the defendant's request that he use his position as president of the Senate to obstruct the certification, the defendant grew frustrated and told the vice president that the defendant would have to publicly criticize him. Upon learning of this, the vice president's chief of staff was concerned for the vice president's safety and alerted the head of the vice president's Secret Service detail. Oh my God. This is insane to me. This is like absolutely fucking insane. That night, the defendant approved and caused the defendant's campaign to issue a public statement that the defendant knew from his meeting with the vice president only hours earlier was false. The vice president and I, this is a quote, "The vice president and I are in total agreement that the vice president has the power to act." On January 6, starting early in the early morning hours, the defendant again turned to knowingly false statements aimed at pressuring the vice president to fraudulently alter the election outcome and raised publicly the false expectation that the vice president might do so. At 1 a.m., the defendant issued a tweet that falsely claimed, quote, If Vice President Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency. Many states want to decertify the mistake they made in certifying incorrect and even fraudulent numbers in a process not approved by their state legislatures, which it must be. Mike can send it back. At 8:17 a.m., defendant issued a tweet that falsely stated, quote, states want to correct their votes, which they now know were based on irregularities and fraud, plus corrupt process never received a legislative approval. All Mike Pence has to do is send them back to the states, and we win. Do it, Mike. This time for an extreme. This is a time for extreme courage. On the morning of January 6, an agent of the defendant contacted a United States senator to ask him to hand-deliver documents to the vice president. The agent then facilitated receipt by the senator's staff of the fraudulent. This is Ron Johnson. Of the fraudulent certificates signed by the defendant's fraudulent electors in Michigan and Wisconsin, which were believed not to have been delivered to the vice president or archivist by mail. When one of the senator's staffer contacted a staffer for the vice president by text message to arrange for delivery of what the senator's staffer had been told were, quote, alternate slates of electors for Michigan and Wisconsin because archivists didn't receive them, the vice president's staffer rejected them. At 11:15 a.m., the defendant called the vice president again and pressured him to fraudulently reject or return Biden's legitimate electoral votes. The vice president again refused. Immediately after the call, the defendant decided to single out the vice president in public remarks he would make within the hour, reinserting language that he had personally drafted earlier that morning, falsely claiming that the vice president had authority to send electoral votes to the states, but that advisors had previously successfully advocated be removed. Earlier that morning, the defendant had selected co-conspirator 2 to join co-conspirator 1 in giving public remarks before his own. Definitely Rudy and John Eastman. When they did so based on knowingly false election fraud claims, co-conspirator 1 and 2 intensified pressure on the vice president to fraudulently obstruct the certification proceeding. They're such scumbags. Co-conspirator 1 told the crowd that the vice president could, quote, cast the ECA aside and unilaterally, quote, decide on the validity of these crooked ballots. He also lied when he claimed to have, quote, have letters from 5 legislators begging us to send elector slates to the legislatures for review and called for, quote, trial by combat. Co-conspirator 2 told the crowd, quote, all we are demanding of Vice President Pence is this afternoon at 1 o'clock, he let the legislatures of the state look into this so that we get to the bottom of it and the American people know whether we have control of the direction of our government or not. We no longer live in self-governing republic if we can't get the answer to this question. Well, he knew the answer to that question. Next, beginning at 11:56 a.m., the defendant made multiple knowingly false statements integral to his criminal plans to defeat the federal government function, obstruct the certification, and interfere with others' right to vote and have their votes counted. The defendant repeated false claims of election fraud, gave false hope that the vice president might change the election outcome, and directed the crowd in front of him to go to the Capitol as a means to obstruct the certification and pressure the vice president to fraudulently obstruct certification. The defendant's knowingly false statements for these purposes included: the defendant falsely claimed that, based on fraud, the vice president could use his position as president of the Senate to alter the outcome of the election results, stating, quote, I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. All he has to do, all this is from number one, or certainly one of the top constitutional lawyers in our country. He has the absolute right to do it. We're supposed to protect our country, support our Constitution, and protect our Constitution. States want to re-vote. The states got defrauded. They were given false information. They voted on it. Now they want to recertify. They want it back. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify, and we become president, and you are the happiest people. After the defendant falsely stated that Pennsylvania legislature wanted to recertify their votes, they want to recertify. But the only way they can happen is if Mike Pence agrees to send it back. The crowd then began to chant, send it back. The defendant also said that regular rules no longer applied, stating, quote, and fraud breaks up everything, doesn't it? When you catch somebody in a fraud, you're allowed to go by very different rules. Like the rule of law. All those people who worked with Trump had opportunities. Yep. Butterflies, you are 100 fucking percent. I say all of them go to prison. Right to jail. Right to jail. How dare you? How dare you try and disenfranchise voters? Like, I just, the gall of that to me is just, it's kind of incredible. It's kind of incredible. Okay. Anyway, here we go. The defendant specifically referred to the process by which electoral votes are counted during the proceeding, including by stating, quote, "We have come to demand Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Finally, after exhorting that, quote, we fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. The defendant directed people in front of him to head to the Capitol, suggested he was going with them, and told them to give members of Congress, quote, the kind of pride and boldness they need to take back our country." During and after the defendant's remarks, thousands of people marched toward the Capitol. The defendant's exploitation of the violence and chaos at the Capitol. Shortly before 1 p.m., the vice president issued a public statement explaining that his role as president of the Senate at the certification proceeding did not include, quote, unilateral authority to determine which electoral votes should be counted and which should not. Before the defendant had finished speaking, a crowd began to gather at the Capitol. On the floor of the House of Representatives, the vice president, in his role as president of the Senate, began the certification proceeding. At approximately 1:11 p.m., the vice president opened the certificates of the vote and certificates of ascertainment that the legitimate electors for the state of Arizona had mailed to Washington, consistent with the ECA. After a congressman and senator lodged an objection to Arizona's certificates, the House and the Senate retired to their separate chambers to debate the objection. A mass of people, including individuals who had traveled to Washington and the Capitol at the defendant's direction, broke through the barriers cordoning off the Capitol grounds and advanced on the building, including by violently attacking law enforcement officers trying to secure it. Beginning around, a crowd at the Capitol broke into the building and forced the Senate to recess. At approximately 2:20 p.m., the official proceeding having been in a ratification. Quote, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth. 1 minute later, at 2:25 p.m., the U.S. Secret Service was forced to evacuate the vice president to a secure location. At the Capitol throughout the afternoon, members of the crowd chanted, "Hang Mike Pence, where is Pence, bring him out," and "Traitor Pence." On the evening of January 6th, the defendant and co-conspirator 1 attempted to exploit the violence and chaos at the Capitol by having co-conspirator 1 call lawmakers to convince them, based on knowingly false claims of election fraud, to delay the certification proceeding in which the defendant had no official role, including from 6:59 p.m. through 7:22 p.m., Rudy Giuliani placed calls to 5 United States senators and 1 U.S. representative. Co-conspirator 6 attempted to confirm phone numbers for 6 United States senators, whom the defendant had directed co-conspirator 1 to call and attempt to enlist and further delaying the certification. In one of the calls, co-conspirator 1 left a voicemail intended for a U.S. senator that said, quote, "We need you, our Republican friends, to try to just slow it down so that we can get these legislatures to get more information to you. And I know they're reconvening at 8 tonight, but the only strategy we can follow is to object to numerous states and raise issues so that we get ourselves into tomorrow, ideally until the end of tomorrow." In another message intended for another U.S. senator, co-conspirator 1, Rudy, repeated knowingly false allegations of election fraud, including that the vote count certified by the states to Congress were incorrect, and that the governors who had certified knew they were incorrect, that, quote, illegal immigrants had voted in substantial numbers in Arizona, and that, quote, Georgia gave you a number in which 65,000 people who were underage voted. Co-conspirator 1 also claimed that the vice president's actions had been surprising and asked the senator to object to every state and kind of spread this out a little bit like a filibuster. The attack on the Capitol obstructed and delayed the certification for approximately 6 hours until the Senate and House of Representatives came back into session separately at 8:06 p.m. and 9:02 p.m., respectively, and came together in a joint session at 11:35 p.m. At 11:44 p.m., co-conspirator 2 emailed the vice president's counsel advocating that the vice president violate the law and seek further delay of the certification. Co-conspirator 2 wrote, "I implore you to consider one more relatively minor violation of the ECA and adjourn for 10 days to allow the legislatures to finish their investigations, as well as to allow a full forensic audit of the massive amount of legal..." She is bang on. Wait, what? Adjourn to finish their investigations, as well as to allow for a full forensic audit of the massive amount of illegal activity that has occurred here. Well, which would turn out that that's not true. At 3:41 a.m. on January 7th, as president of the Senate, the vice president announced the certified results of the 2020 presidential election in favor of Biden. Count 2. Oh, my God. The allegations contained in paragraphs 1 through 5 and 9 through 100 of the superseding indictment are realleged and fully incorporated here by reference. From on or about November 13th through on or about January 7th in the District of Columbia and elsewhere, the defendant, Donald Trump, did knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with co-conspirators known and unknown to the grand jury to corruptly obstruct and impede an official proceeding that is the certification of the electoral vote in violation of this. Count 3. Okay, so it's basically going over that. Yep. And count 4. Allegations. Okay, realleged. Did knowingly conspire. Okay, sweet. That's it. That's it. Okay, well, it is, it's basically the same document. I mean, they did remove some of the stuff. Okay, let me tell you what I think about this. And then I'm probably going to have to go. Sorry, hold on. I don't know why my thing is so fucked up. Oh, here we go. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Let me. Yay. Here's the thing. Ooh, my eyelash is falling off. Okay, here's the thing. I mean, I guess that, it's definitely more concise. It removes the stuff where, Jeffrey Clark comes over from in the Department of Justice and tries to, strong arm Richard Donahue and other people. So it gets rid of that stuff because the Supreme Court, or Clarence Thomas basically, is asserting that any conversations that that Trump had with people like Jeffrey Clark from the Department of Justice or other things aren't evidence of a crime. They can't be used against him, I guess. So I'm curious as to whether the conversations with Pence are included in that, because they do reference the conversations with Pence. I know. I think it's gonna, right? I think, is it look like it's falling? Because it looks like it's falling to me. I mean, it's stuck, but it's not stuck. You know what I mean? I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, really. Don't go in my covfefe. But I kind of am like, I thought that there was concerns about his conversations with Pence being included in the case. But this has a lot of references to his conversations with Pence. So I'm a little confused about that. I'm also confused because I'm really having a hard time. Like, why? Yeah, the real dirty housewives. Yeah, the real dirty housewives. I guess that's what I kind of like. Where are all these other people? Like, where's Boris Epstein? Where's Where's people that probably did the dirty work? I don't know. You know what? I'm going to let it ride. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm not an expert. I should not react until we know a little bit more. I need to learn more about this indictment. I don't know why, but I still believe we're going to get justice. I really do. I don't know why. Certain days I don't feel that way, but then other days I kind of do. I kind of feel like we will. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. All right. Well, that's, I think, going to be it for me this morning. Thank you so much for coming and listening as we got to read this. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for listening. This really helps me because I want to read these documents, but I probably wouldn't read them on my own. So like reading to people is really helpful for me because then at least I read them. So thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Let's hope this one sticks. So I haven't gotten my shit together after the DNC, but I am getting my shit together slowly. There will be shows coming up with Meet the Maggots. So we're going to have some Meet the Maggots where we go behind the scenes and think a little bit and look into these people. You know, like John Eastman, etc. You're so welcome, butterflies. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Oh my gosh. Really nice. Have a great Wednesday. I hope it's a good one. Oh, my car. Well, no, my car's not fixed yet. We got to wait a minute. You DM'd me about Fisher. Oh, Ford Fisher? Is he finally telling me to go fuck myself? No. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Well, thanks again for coming. I don't know if Jim's going to have a space tonight, but I hope he does. I know he's been busy. You should check out, he's going, him and Chaya, Libs of TikTok, are really getting into it. So it was a pretty good, entertaining battle to watch. I like people pushing back on Libs of TikTok. If it's always a good thing. So yeah, thank you. No, thanks for hanging out with me this morning, and hang out with me tomorrow morning. I'm coming back. We got more to read. I think this has made me want to read some other things. Chaya is head librarian. Oh, really? You're kidding. Really? Oh my God, what a terrible thing. How in the world could she be in charge of a library? It's slow, but the silver lining is once the ringleaders, I mean, they'll die in prison. Yeah, no, we're going to get there. I don't know how, I don't know when, but we're going to get there. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. No. All right. Thanks again for coming. I really enjoyed it. It's so nice to get back into reading documents. I need to get back into reading because I really enjoy those streams a lot. Hopefully you do too. All right. Hopefully I'll see you tonight on Space. And then I will, too nice a day. Oh yeah. Go outside. Yeah. And I will see you tomorrow morning. I promise. With eyelashes that are probably sticking a little bit better. All right. Thanks, guys.